Welcome to those who have joined us for our session on Juris Doctor, Unlock a Career in Law. We have an insightful webinar planned for you. Before our panel discussion with our esteemed alumni of the program, I'm pleased to welcome our first speaker, Dr Andrew Burke. Dr Burke is the Director of the Juris Doctor program and lecturer at Macquarie Law School. I've been lucky enough to be taught by Andrew myself in both criminal justice and civil and criminal procedure as part of my undergraduate law studies, and he will be kicking off this session by providing us some insights into the Juris Doctor program. So Andrew, thank you for joining us, and jumping right into our first question, can we start with what you think are some of the key program features of Juris Doctor or JD?
Thanks, Dylan, and nice to see you again, even under such virtual circumstances. Look, there's a lot going for the JD. There's a lot to commend it. Probably start with the flexibility. It's very flexible. You can do it full-time, which will take you 3 years, or part-time, which will take you a bit longer, but you can do it at a pace that suits you. And you can do it either by coming to campus, when campus is open, of course, which touch wood we will be next year, or you can do it by distance online. So there really is a study option that suits just about everybody, depending, anybody, regardless of age or your family situation or your job situation or where you live, there's a way to study the JD.
That's fantastic to hear. And I'm sure our audience is wondering if they're thinking about what the JD is for them, is there a certain type of person or an individual who's best suited to studying this course?
Look, I find, and since I became JD Director, I've really tried to find out who our students are and speak to as many as possible. And look, it's very diverse. It's very diverse. And there's kind of probably something there for just about everybody. There's some students who come almost straight from an undergraduate degree. They've done one degree and that's probably not quite enough for them. So I think I'll go straight into a JD. There are a lot of other students who've done a first degree, gone out into the workforce for a few years, and then thought, yeah, I'm not sure that this career is for me. And so now they're doing a JD in order to change career or to give them more promotion opportunities where they are as a career change or a career boost, a career enhancer. And so you get some people a lot of students are very keen on becoming lawyers, but you get others who are doing a law degree, not to become a lawyer, but to enhance their career. And fascinating people. We have a commissioner from the Land and Environment Court. I've had the CEO of the Commonwealth Drug Enforcement Agency in my unit before. The CEO of the Port Macquarie Base Hospital is doing a law degree at the moment at Macquarie in order to enhance her professional abilities. So it's a really wide range. And look, I think that's part of the strength of it, is that in an undergraduate law degree, look, students are wonderful, they're great, but they're all come straight from school and they're all much the same. I'm like you, Dylan, obviously excellent. But you get into the JD, it's the diversity in the class is a real strength. Different ages, different backgrounds. I'm serving police officers, for example, in my criminal justice unit at the moment. And at times I invite them to cover the topic instead of me. And we all benefit from that, from sharing the professional experience. So that the diversity of backgrounds in the room and then people sort of, cross-fertilizing, discussing things, sharing opinions, it really adds something.
Absolutely, and it sounds so engaging and amazing that there is that diversity in the students that undertake a JD course to then progress into their next career path or even just cement what they're doing at the moment. Obviously, sort of the most typical pathway after JD would be practicing law. So my next question is about what are the key steps before a student doing JD begins practicing? So is there any difference on the path or career route? And should they take different paths for different roles? So for example, becoming a solicitor, a barrister, or a corporate legal professional.
Well, look, it's just the same as an undergraduate law degree in terms of the career possibilities that it gives you. It's a recognised law degree that allows you to practice law. And so you do similar subjects to what undergrad students do, but because it's a master's level, you do them at a little bit of a harder standard, right? Because it's master's level. What I would say in terms of thinking in terms of career goals and outcomes is that we have something called PACE. It stands for Professional and Community Engagement. Every JD student has to do a PACE unit, and it allows students to go out into the workforce, a sort of place that sort of suits them, that is attractive to them, and get experience for a semester in a particular area of the legal workforce. And that counts as a unit towards their degree. So it really allows you to dip your toe in the water. You think maybe this will be something for me, you can try that, start to make professional contacts and networks and so on. So that's useful heading towards employment. Then once you've finished your degree, you have to do something else through the College of Law, usually called practical legal training, which is a course most people do online, often whilst they're working as well. You do a period in the workplace where, as part of your practical legal training, and then you can be admitted and you go from there. Most lawyers will start as a solicitor, and then some will go to the bar to become a barrister. You don't have to wait, you can go straight to the bar if you want, but most people don't. It's important to note too, though, that whilst most of our JD students are interested in legal practice, there's also other opportunities with a law degree. It's a great qualification for lots of different careers, and that's how it's used these days, as a more generalist qualification. So to work in the public service, to work as a journalist, to work in business, a law degree will get you places that you want to go. And the story I often tell in this regard is my wife now actually met at Macquarie when we did our law degrees some years ago. We started on the same day, graduated on the same day. She's never practiced law, but she's had a wonderful career in the public service. When she graduated, she applied to the Environment Protection Authority to be a policy officer, and they hired 5 people in a graduate program. Thousands of people applied. Of the 5, all 5 had law degrees. Right? And that's just a great example of how it helps. Any kind of opportunity like that, the people with the law degrees tend to go to the top of the pile. And those 5 are still successful in the public service and have risen and all doing very well. So it's a great degree because it provides so many opportunities. The final thing I'll say too is that people can have a very narrow idea of what being a lawyer is like, often based off TV, to be honest. And I love lawyer TV too, I'm not knocking it. But that can give you a little bit of a narrow sense. The fact is the legal profession is extremely broad, and there is a job and there's a niche for every personality and every skill set. I used to be a criminal defense lawyer, and I used to be in court just about every day arguing cases. You can be a lawyer and never see the inside of a courtroom. You might be negotiating big deals for the big end of town, or you could be doing family law, or you could be doing almost anything. You can work for a global law firm, or you can work for yourself. You can argue in court, or you cannot. It's an extremely diverse profession. So when people say, oh, I don't think I'd like to be a lawyer, I always say that's ridiculous, because there's an infinite number of different types of legal jobs. There's really something for everybody.
And with the number of different opportunities that are available for law graduates, in a way, it can sort of be hard to put a metric or exactly measure the job prospects that are available for law students and JD students. But alas, the question does always come up, so I'll have to ask it. In terms of employability and job prospects, what can our graduates expect from a JD program?
Look, we know, and look, I stay in touch with a lot of our former students as much as I can. I find LinkedIn someone very useful for that. We find that so many of our students go on to good jobs, the jobs that in the area that they're looking for. A law degree is always attractive to employers. I think the JD in some ways is particularly attractive because they're getting people who are a little bit older, a little bit more life experience, perhaps a bit more mature and more ready to hit the ground really running. And JDs too, I find, are people who've made a very deliberate decision to do a law degree and really chosen that very definitely. And I think that's really recognised. So look, no degree in the world is going to give you a 100% employment guarantee. But in my opinion, looking at our students and tracking them and seeing how they do, the Macquarie JD does very well.
Well, it definitely sounds really promising. And thank you, Andrew, for those insights into Juris Doctor. Of course, for more detail on entry requirements, course structure, and how to apply, you can always visit our course finder page at courses.mq.edu.au. Now, talking about what graduates can expect, Joining Andrew now for our panel discussion are two alumni of the program. I'm honoured to introduce Carla Rose Brett, law graduate, dispute resolution at Ashurst, and Shleeman Isho, solicitor with Aboriginal Legal Service. So thank you both so much for joining us. For our audience, join the conversation at any time by typing your questions for any of our panelists through the Q&A function, and we will answer these questions at the end of our session today. So Carla, Rose and Shleeman, welcome again. My first question for both of you is if you can share with us a bit more about your career journey so far and what does your role entail? So Shleeman, I'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me on the program today. So I'm a junior solicitor at the Aboriginal Legal Service. My role is a criminal defence lawyer. If I can summarise my role in kind of two key, tasks, it is predominantly doing list work in various local courts in the city. And list work entails a variety of things, including, managing fresh custody, so bail applications, sentences, mental health applications, and on the other side is through the custody notification service. So that is a 24-hour legal advice hotline, and also very importantly a welfare line for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who are taken into police custody, and that came about as a result of the recommendations of the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody. So I guess my role as a CNS solicitor is during my shift I'll receive a call from the police notifying me of the custody of an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander person. And then I'll go ahead and do a welfare check on the individual, make sure they're doing okay. I refer them to any services that I deem is necessary, or if they need any medical assistance. It's kind of a 24-hour "Are you okay?" hotline, and then we'll get to the legal advice. So whether the police want to proceed with an interview or any forensic procedures or anything like that, I'll provide advice around that. And also, if required, get in touch with loved ones and let them know where they are and how they're doing. So I guess those are the two things kind of that I do in my role. So far, no real kind of stories to share because I've recently started, and it's been a little bit of a slow start, obviously due to the recent outbreak. But I guess, yeah, that's what I do, and it hasn't been a straightforward kind of process. I started off, obviously doing a JD, I started having a bachelor's degree. I did 3 years at Sydney Uni. I did an arts degree. I guess I wanted to do different things coming out of uni, but I always had a passion for law, an interest in law, not necessarily a passion for criminal law, but I'm sure there, you'll ask me later on, how that came about. I'm happy to get into it, but I'm just mindful of the time. I can ramble on forever. So that's my answer.
Well, Shleeman, thank you for that. It does sound like really important, meaningful, and hopefully rewarding work. So thank you so much for that insight. I'll now pass over for the same question to Carla Rose. If you could tell us a little bit about your career journey so far.
Sure, thank you for having me. So I currently work as a law graduate at Ashurst in the Dispute Resolution Practice Group, which essentially means litigation. I've been involved in everything from court cases to mediations and settlement conferences. For those who don't know, Ashurst is a corporate and commercial law firm, which is international. There's 28 offices in 16 different countries. But prior to starting the Juris Doctor, I actually did a Bachelor of Arts media degree at Macquarie University. And then I went on to work in social media marketing and public relations for a couple of years before I decided to make the leap into law.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. And it's really interesting to see sort of the different pathways that led you guys into a JD and then the different opportunities that have come as a result of that. So I now want to ask a question about your time as a JD student. So Shlemin, I'll start with you. What was your experience while studying Juris Doctor, and how has your career been shaped by the course?
Yeah, so it was a very positive experience. I came to Macquarie Uni with a very open mind. I'd heard great things from friends that had attended Macquarie, and yeah, it was really exciting. I guess what really kind of shaped my experience is the activities and kind of that moles the Macquarie University Law Society offered. I got involved with mooting at the start, and for those who don't know what mooting is, it's pretty much like a mock trial where there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, but you advocate on separate sides. And we went on to win my group went on to win the Foundations of Law moot, which was really great. And I guess that experience really, opened me up to the idea of pursuing advocacy. I guess what also shaped it is, my first, interaction with Dr Andrew Burke, taking his criminal justice and public policy class. I mean, if I'm being, full and frank, I never saw myself going into criminal law. But hearing Andrew talk, I remember in the first lecture, he said, look, first thing you'll do as a criminal defence lawyer is you'll get the police facts, and almost all the time they'll always be wrong. And that looking back at that makes me laugh. And he was really unreserved about the fact that he was, a criminal defence lawyer, and the way he put that forward. But he also, did a good job of kind of painting a holistic picture of all the different roles and that all the different parties play. So that you've got the criminal defence, you've got prosecution, and all the other various stakeholders. So, looking back at where the journey started and where I am now, it's been a kind of a full circle. So I definitely encourage everybody to get involved in all the kind of the activities and the events that Moles offers, because definitely made for a fulfilling and enriching experience at law school.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shlomo. And it's great to hear as well that there was such a congruence between the things you were hearing from your academics, especially Andrew, who we have here, and how that sort of manifested in your career path and the things you've seen in the real world since graduating. Carla Rose, I'll ask you the same question regarding how the experiences you've had in the JD program have sort of shaped your career now that you've graduated from the program.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed studying and completing the course. I find the law really fascinating, and Macquarie has really great teachers such as Andrew who really contextualise what you're learning and put it into practice. Andrew also made an impression on me. I remember he would always talk about the type of clients he had and really funny cases, and it just makes it so much more interesting to learn. And I also had a criminal case I was involved in, and yeah, a lot of what he was saying did reflect what I went through in practice, so that was really good to see that. What made me decide to study at Macquarie Uni was actually when I decided to change careers. It was around May, and I'm someone who's quite determined and impatient, so I wanted to start law now. And I saw that Macquarie was offering second semester starts. I think it was July or August. And also the fact that Macquarie had flexible units, so I could do some units online, was what I was after, because I knew that I wanted to work in law straight away and have that flexibility. So Macquarie really just ticked all my boxes. I already had been there for my undergrad, so I knew that the staff were really lovely and people in general are quite down to earth. And it is a highly regarded university, flexible units, and I knew that I could get it done full time in 3 years.
And Carla Rose, it's so great to hear that you have that sort of determination and that drive to get to where you want to be. And it sounds like Macquarie was really able to cater for that and facilitate that to happen. So that's really great that you've had that experience. Another question I'd ask for both of you guys, and then also Andrew, is having been through the JD course and experienced it firsthand, what advice would you give to someone considering embarking on the JD course? So Carla Rose, I might start with you for this one.
Yeah, if you're considering doing law, I would say just go for it. You can always drop out if you don't like it, but I guarantee you love it as soon as you start because it's just so fascinating. My advice would be to be a sponge, absorb everything that you can from your teachers, your peers, what you're reading, get involved in the societies like Schlemmen said. But also I would highly recommend getting stuck into the legal profession straight away, just to see if that's what you want to get into and you know what areas of law you liked. For example, I did conveyancing for a little bit and I realized I don't really like transactional work. And then I worked for a boutique firm doing corporate litigation, and I realized I love litigation, which I didn't really think I would love as much. And then I got into Asher. So it was a journey, and I think that's really important just to see what areas you're interested in. Also, grades matter depending on where you want to go. If you do want to aim for the top tier firms like Asher, they really do take grades into consideration. But I would say networking is even more important just to get your foot in the door in that regards.
That's really great and practical advice, even myself as a current law student, and definitely for prospective JD students to hear that and to hear you now sort of succeeding in such a top tier firm is really, really fantastic and definitely good advice to take on board. So thank you for that. Schlemmen, I'll ask you the same question about advice you would have for prospective law students.
Yeah, I'll definitely second what Carla said, especially the bit about getting involved in the legal profession at an early stage, and that can mean anything. I mean, I started volunteering at the Aboriginal Legal Service halfway through my Juris Doctor program, and honestly, it couldn't have gone better because I got exposed to work that I found really fulfilling, really enriching, and haven't looked back since. I'd also say, coming from a background where, I don't have any close immediate, family or friends that, are in the legal profession. So you're going to be exposed to new legal terms and jargon. It's almost like learning another language when you start law. Don't be disheartened. Don't be frightened. In your first course, Dawn Foundations, you'll be struggling to figure out, the concept of precedent. But as you go towards through your degree and you pick up that confidence, things will start kind of coming together. And yeah, I guess it's good to be competitive, and that's a great thing. But also, don't be disheartened if you feel like you're finding it difficult. Trust yourself, trust the process, and yeah, don't give up. You can always back out, like Carla said, but just cut yourself some slack, and yeah, it definitely is worth it.
And Schlemmen, you mentioned that idea of it being a process and that not everything is going to click on day one. And I think that is such an important thing to remember, and the fact that it is sort of a series of 3 years full time where you develop those skills over that time to then be career ready by the end of it. So thank you so much for that. And Andrew, as someone who I'm sure has seen many, many students go through and then come out the doors into practicing all around the world in law and other related fields, I'd love to hear your insight into advice you give to prospective law students as well.
Sure. Look, I would say two things. One, ask questions. The number of students who will come up to you and say, "Oh, I'm really sorry to bother you, but can I ask this?" Academics love questions because it shows that you actually care and you've thought about it enough that you have something to ask. We don't mind. It's good to ask questions. But so many students I see will go almost through the whole degree without asking one. And whereas the students who do ask them, they get a lot more back. Seek and you shall receive. Ask questions, whether in person in class or online. Academics love talking about their area of the law and will help you, but you've got to reach out, take that little step. Second, I would say is be a joiner. And Schliemann touched on this before with regard to moles and mooting, and I'm pleased that he did because I'd neglected to bring that up. Throw yourself into things. The mooting and other competitions that moles organise, the Macquarie University Law Society, so the student organisation, the biggest student organisation on campus, a great organisation. There's a multitude of competitions. They're on all the time. I get involved in the criminal law moot. I write the question, I help judge it. It's heaps of fun. By throwing yourself in, being a joiner, getting involved, you'll make more friends, you'll have more fun, you'll learn more stuff, you'll improve your networking. What Carla said about networking is spot on. The people that you do a law degree with will be people that you will know for the rest of your career. Some of them will be good mates. Some of them you're not necessarily best mates with, but you know them. I have still people now, a couple of decades later, where I can phone them up or email them and ask them a question about something, and they'll have a chat to me and explain because we went to uni together. The professional networks are super important. So be a joiner, get involved, and that includes things like volunteering, somewhere that you're interested in volunteering or looking for paid paralegal work early in your degree. Put yourself into it.
Well, thank you so much for that insight, Andrew, and also Schliemann and Carla Rose. It's been really, really valuable insight and hopefully is encouraging and motivating all of our viewers watching with us this evening. So that concludes the pre-prepared questions, and we'll now open up the session for Q&A. So for those in the audience, please keep sending through your questions for our panel through the Q&A box, and we will get to as many of them as possible. So the first question I have is a fairly straightforward one. Andrew, I'll throw this to you. And the question is, how long is the practical legal training?
Actually, it might be better for one of the others because it was a while since I did it. It might have changed.
Absolutely.
Carla,
I can throw to Schliemann or Carla Rose. Yeah.
I'm currently doing it at the moment. I've got about a month left and it's 15 or 16 weeks full time. Otherwise, I believe it would be about 6 months if you wanted to do it part-time. I'm doing with the College of Law, so I'm not sure if other places have different time periods.
Did you want to add anything to that, Schliemann?
Carla is pretty much spot on there. I did mine full time. Took me about 3 months. It's a good kind of program where you have a various amount of units and you just complete them while you're working or so 3 months I think it was. Yeah.
Perfect. And it is really fantastic that you are able to continue working while doing that practical. So definitely a big advantage in that there. Another question we have is saying that, can you share a moment with us which you found to be the most rewarding in your career to date? So I might open this up to everyone. Maybe Schliemann, if we start with you.
Yeah, so no real kind of highlights so far in my capacity as a solicitor, I guess, obviously, because I'm still fresh and still learning the ropes, and obviously it's been a bit of a slow start with COVID. But definitely during my time as a volunteer with the ALS, doing research for trial advocates, for barristers in in leading cases which were heard in the higher courts, and seeing that come to fruition with a favourable judgment. I was always really passionate about Indigenous issues, from a long time, and seeing that kind of manner criminal stories is really, really rewarding. And I guess that's why I'd really recommend kind of getting involved in volunteering at a community legal centre or an organisation like the ALS, because yeah, you can, you know, there's a potential of being involved in some really good things, and yeah, I guess that would be.
Thank you for that. And Carla Rose, what would be an experience you had that was particularly rewarding?
I would say when I was a paralegal, I was involved in a criminal case from start to finish, and I was lucky enough to be able to sit on the bar table with the barrister during hearing, and that was really exciting. Just being able to shadow him and quickly locate documents to tender them to the witness in cross-examination. It was really exhilarating, and the fact that we won was even better, but more so that the fact that my client didn't have to go to jail and had a fresh start at life, that was extremely rewarding to me.
And the fact that you had that experience and then the favourable outcome, I'm sure was just an absolutely fantastic experience overall, that you got the result you were working so hard for. So thank you for that. And Andrew, as a career in law probably stretches longer than the rest of us combined, I'll ask what one of your really memorable experiences is in that time.
Well, it's a hard question, isn't it? I mean, look, I could talk about cases that were won and so on, but what I'm thinking, this is a little bit of a cop-out, but it's always the best thing about being a lawyer is that there isn't a single great moment, and it's given me such a range of good experiences. I worked in environmental law at a non-profit centre. I worked in criminal defence and had a lot of great experiences, and then I've been able to become an academic in a different path again. I've gone from being that young lawyer who was totally freaked out and intimidated and out of my depth and knew nothing, to being somebody who teaches it. And I still certainly don't know everything, I'm still learning, but it's the depth and quality and range of experiences that it gives you is what makes it such a great career, where I've been able to move from one thing to the next and loved all of them.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andrew. And sort of going to the other end of the spectrum now, from very sort of broad questions to a, I guess, somewhat more finite one. We've got another question that's come in that asks, what age group is the typical JD student?
Do you want me to answer that?
If you can, if you have any sort of demographic data or just sort of general observations.
Look, I teach two of the compulsory units, so I see a lot of JD students. I don't think there is a typical age. There are certainly a lot of students who I'd say are early, mid-20s. So they've done a first degree and then either gone straight into a JD or gone into it within a year or two. But then you also have students late 20s, 30s, and then, to be honest, a range going all the way through. You get some students in their 50s or 60s who are doing it, I think, probably just out of interest, just for fun. So it certainly skews towards early, mid-20s. But then there is representation of basically literally every other age group from there on.
So definitely a varied demographic data. It's not sort of a cookie cutter mold of the typical JD student. So it's great to see that sort of at whatever stage you're at or whatever your circumstances are, you can definitely still have that option available to you. We've got another question that's come in. It's asking, after graduation, what is the next step required to practice, or is it included in part of the degree? So Carla Rose, I know you touched on this a little bit before. Did you want to expand on the sort of process to practicing post-graduation?
Yeah, so once you have your degree, you have to get your graduate diploma of legal practice, I believe it's called, and that is I'm doing it with the College of Law, but I know that there are other places you can do that as well. And then you also need a work experience component, a part of that, so you can be admitted as a solicitor. I'm fortunate enough to be working alongside doing my PLT, but I know you can also accrue hours while you're still studying. I believe it's 2 years prior that you can start counting the days that you contribute towards the end. It's 75 days in total, but they do have other options available. It really depends on what you're after. And then you can apply to be an admitted solicitor. Schlemmen is an admitted solicitor, so I might be missing something that I haven't come across yet, but that's basically the pathway.
Well, Schlemmen, as a solicitor, was there anything that you wanted to include in there?
Yeah, so pretty much what Carla said. You can only backdate 60 days. So my advice is, my recommendation is, if you are getting some legal experience and it fits the kind of the definition of what work means under the College of Law's rules. So they've got a set of rules and they define what constitutes work for the purposes of the work experience component. You can count 60 days. 15 days have to be from memory during your actual coursework. And once you've completed that and satisfied all of your oral assessments at college or your PLT program, depending on which provider you go through, you'll then make an application to the LPAB, the Legal Profession Admission Board, and satisfy a number of criteria. You know, you'll have to have 2 people vouch for you, so 2 character acknowledgements, and you have to pass the test of fit and proper person. And that's something everyone here will learn when they do ethics and what that means to be a fit and proper person. And once you do that, you can book it in, and hopefully by the time you guys are graduating, you'll have an in-person ceremony at the Supreme Court. Mine was unfortunately cancelled because it happened right in during the time of when we had the recent outbreak. So, but yeah, it's short and sharp, I guess, is the way I could describe PLT. It's over in a blink of an eye. But my advice is to kind of embrace it all, take it all, stride, and everyone will do really good in their own way.
Well, thank you so much, Schlemmen and Carla Rose, for that insight. That's really helpful in terms of the practical side of actually getting to where you want to be after you graduate through the JD course. I've got one final question that's been sent through. It's another quite practical one, and it asks that we discuss flexibility with the course as part of the time model, and it wants to know what would be the maximum and minimum subjects per semester or per year undertaken in JD. So, Andrew, would you like to answer that one?
Sure. So full-time is 4 units per semester, 8 per year, and then you might be able to do 1 in what we call summer semester or 3rd semester, which is over Christmas as well. But the degree has to take it's a minimum of 3 years, so it has to take you 3 years. The least you can do is 1 unit per semester, and 2 a year. So if you have a complete break for a semester, that's a leave of absence that you need to apply for. But it's 24 units, so 2 a year would take you 12 years. So I don't think you'd want to go any slower than that. But yes, you can do between 1 and 4 units per semester.
So it definitely sounds like there's a lot of flexibility, and even if you were working while studying, there is that capacity to balance your studies and your other commitments and still progress through in your degree, albeit it might be at a slower speed than if you were doing it as a full-time student. So thank you so much to Andrew, Schlemmen and Carla Rose for your insight into all of those questions and into what the Juris Doctor program contains. This brings us to the end of our Juris Doctor Unlock a Career in Law session. At the end of the expo, we'll be sending out to you some detailed information that also contains our contact details and how you can book a one-on-one consultation with an expert to realise your goals with Macquarie. So we very much look forward to welcoming you to Macquarie University. Take care, and thanks for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you soon.